Just wait a few seconds for everybody to join. What's going on, guys? Happy July. Today is Tuesday, July 1st. Good morning and welcome to July. We're officially in the summertime. Well, I'm in Florida, so my summer started last month in June. Typically, just so you guys know, if you're newer to the industry, it is normal to be a little bit slower when all the kids are out of school, summertime. At least I think that's the case in where I'm at. I'm in Florida, so our barbershops typically slow down in the summertime. There's just people are going on, I don't know why, but my assumption would be people are going on vacation. They're stretching out their haircuts. It's a little counterintuitive, right? Because you think it's the summer, so people are wanting to keep their hair shorter. But in reality, it's usually actually the opposite that happens in our case. And people tend to stretch out their haircuts, even with a membership program. So a lot of our clients, actually over 700 now of our clients are on a membership, and that's growing. I think we can get to 1,000. I think we can get to 1,000 members at our shop by the end of the year. That would be a little fast to gain 300 members. That's almost half of what we currently have. But if you incentivize your barbers to do things, things happen faster, right? So we could do another couple membership contests, and I think that'll get us there. While we're waiting on some questions to come in. Oh, by the way, do you guys feel like your shop slows down a little bit in the summer? Am I the only one? I do know that it's pretty common to have seasonality in our business. I didn't know this in the beginning. Hold on, I'm putting something in the chat here. So I didn't realize this in the beginning, right? But for like the first 3 years in business, we've been in business almost 10 years now. I thought I was doing something wrong or whatever, And then when the summertime came around, there's these certain time of year, I think, that you can expect the shop to slow down a little bit. Summertime is definitely one of them, and just know that it's normal. Like that doesn't mean we should accept it, right? Like I try to do things to like level out the business, So, but you're always gonna have like seasonality where it's some months, some weeks are just insanely busy, and then you're gonna have other weeks where it's like, why am I here? So I've seen that to be true in my case, and the only thing that we can do as barbershop owners, I think, and as barbers, is try to make it so that it doesn't hurt as much, but you're going to be affected by seasonality, right? Just know that whenever the kids go back to school wherever you live, chances are you're going to have a pretty busy month. Like that's the case for us at least. So where I'm at, kids go back to school in August, so August is almost always one of our busiest months of the year, like pretty consistent. But our busiest months usually kind of flip-flop between November and December in terms of revenue. Like our highest revenue producing months are usually November or December. It really depends on how many barbers you have, how many, how good you are at marketing, how good you are at retaining clients, but ultimately that's been the trend for the past few years. My social media spend. Okay. What do you mean by you mean my ads? So I tend to, well, the amount we spend on ads kind of varies depending on our capacity and how busy we are, right? So in the summertime, for example, when we're a little bit quieter, I'm going to spend more, that makes sense, because we have capacity, right? We have barbers, but not as many clients on the schedule. So as long as the ads are profitable, I can turn them up, spend more, and try to work a little bit harder to fill a barber schedule. When we're less busy, so like next month, August, I'm going to dial the budget back down, right? Because we're not going to need as much help filling our schedule. So it doesn't have to be like the same throughout the whole year. I think it depends on, like, if you're really, really busy, then you don't really need to run ads as much, right? Because you can't really handle more clients anyways. You got to focus on, as a barbershop owner, you have to focus on, hiring at that point, right? So that's what I do. I'm either spending money on trying to get clients, or I'm spending money on trying to get barbers. It just kind of depends on what problem we need to solve at that point. But I typically don't spend any less than $100 a day. That's kind of the minimum. That might sound like a lot, but it ends up being like 3 grand a month, give or take a few $100s. So that's about how much I spend on social media as far as ads go. Now, as far as creating just content for social media, my wife helps me with that. We have a videographer. So that's a few $1,000s a month right there. So, I'm usually spending between, I would say, 6 grand on the low end between organic, social media, and ads, and up to, I've spent 15, 20 grand a month. So it just kind of depends on the time of year. The key is like, do you have capacity? If you do, then you need to focus on marketing. And then, are you getting a return? If like we're running ads, for example, if you're getting a return on your investment, like for every dollar you put in, you're getting at least $1.50, $2 back. That's a good deal, right? I would put more into that ad. And I would keep putting in more until you started to run out of capacity, or you start to have capacity issues. Like you can spend more, the ads are profitable, but you don't have room for clients. So even though it sucks at that point, you might have to think about, okay, I got to dial this budget back down because I got to focus on getting more barbers. Now, if you're just a barber, then there's a couple things you can do. You can raise your prices. That's really it. If you're a barber, that's the only thing you can do. Raise your prices, But I wouldn't do that after like one busy month either. It's like you want to see, because I've seen like it's gonna happen this year too. I see barbers that are like, my prices are going up, and of course they're doing this in December, where like you should be busy as a barber in November and December. Well, the question is, how does your schedule look when you get into January and February, when you get into June and July? So if you're still busy during those months, yeah, for sure go up on your prices. But you want to go off for more than 1 month when you're thinking about doing a price increase, right? Kind of a long answer, but does that help, Bill? Does that help answer your question? It really depends on our goals. So Ramon wants to know, are you booth rent or commission? And if you pay commission, what's the percentage your barbers take home? All right, so I have a good thing, Ramon, is I have a whole video on my YouTube channel which breaks down this exact subject, because I could tell you a number, but I don't think that's where you should stop, when you're thinking about how to pay your barbers. So the best answer to this question, no matter what I say, is ultimately you got to do the math to make sure it makes sense for your business. That's not the answer that people usually want to hear, but it's really the only right answer. Is like, what can you afford? So some places pay their barbers, by the hour. Some places pay their barbers on the low end of the commission scale, 30%, 40%. Some places go 50, 60, 70%. And it can all work, but you got to be able to do the math and see, do you like, where your numbers look like after the barber gets their cut. But we're commission, by the way. And I do think there's more than two business models, but I just say commission for simplicity. But I will show you guys where to find that video on my channel, because you'll get a way more, it's like a 45-minute long video or something. Yeah, 46 minutes. So let me show you where to find it on my YouTube channel. And this will be the best answer to this question, right? So I think this is the thumbnail that I got going right now. So how much commission should barber shop owners pay their barbers? So this is a public video. Anybody can access this. 46 minutes of me answering this question of, what do you think you should pay your barbers? The answer, I'll give you a hint, is do the math and figure out what makes sense. But we are, I guess you could call it commission based. But our barbers are all W-2 employees. So they have to get paid by the hour. And so if they do 0 haircuts, they're at least getting paid by the hour. And there's taxes and things coming out. But we do have a performance pay structure. So their hourly basically goes up if their sales go up. So it's basically a form of commission. but we don't call it commission. We just call it performance pay. Yeah. So we don't do booth rent. I've never done booth rent. I've got no problems with booth rent. You guys can do whatever you want. It just didn't align with my goals, right? And I have another video on my YouTube channel that talks about booth rent versus commission, which is the right structure for you. I don't recommend anything. I just kind of, this is my perspective. This is what I do. This is what's worked for me. And this is based on the research that I can find. But you guys, the ultimate answer is to do the math. Like I'm just realizing the longer that I'm in business, the more this is just a really complicated math problem. Like that's the answer to your question is like do the math, and you can figure out what in terms of your lifestyle, which business structure kind of fits with your lifestyle. If you want something that is low maintenance, simple, then booth rent's better for that, for sure, hands down. Can't argue with that. I went with the absolute hardest. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, I went with employees, W-2, taxes, payroll, getting paid by the hours, having them clock in, clock out, hiring, firing, managing. Like this is I think the hardest way to do it. So maybe commission is somewhere in the middle. It's definitely harder than booth rent, but not as hard as what I'm currently doing. I definitely did it the hard way, and that's just because that aligns with my goals, which is the goal is to grow. I want to have multiple locations, and I tend to copy the people that have the biggest businesses. So that's what they do, and then I did the math to figure out what works for my business. So I'm not telling you guys to do anything that I haven't already done. And then I started doing it, right? But it's definitely hard, So don't just copy me or copy anybody else that you see on the internet, right? Because you got to figure out like what's right for you. Does that make sense, Ramon? That's the best answer is try to do the math. Like put your revenue in there. Okay, how much do the barbers get? What does it cost to run your business? Okay, what's left over? Do you like how that number looks? If so, go for it. If not, keep messing with it. I'm currently working on like a version 2 of our performance pay structure. It's gonna take me a long time to really dial this in. I'm speaking to like different experts about it. I really want to take my time because payroll is one of the most dangerous things that you can mess with in your barbershop, because at least that's the case for me, but honestly I think it's the case for really any service business, is payroll is going to be your largest cost, right? For context, my payroll cost right now is usually somewhere between 35 and 40% of revenue, right? So that's actually pretty decent. A lot of barbershops are way higher than that, and we used to be, but we worked on ways to bring that down, right? So we are at one point our payroll cost was like 70, 75, 80% of revenue, right? So that's insane, right? There's no surprise that we almost went out of business, right? When our payroll went up that high, right? Because there's nothing left over. Like that's just what the barbers get. You're not even talking about the cost of running the business yet. That's just what the barbers get. So you got to be careful with this stuff. Do the math. Talk to people that are way smarter than you, that way better at math. That's what I'm doing, right? I spoke with 2 different barbershop owners so far. I spoke with somebody that used to work for me that's on that structure, and yeah. And I'm going to speak with even more people. I'm paying $250 for a 1-hour coaching call with a salon owner who does this stuff already. I'm probably going to speak to my CPA. I've already talked to my accountant. So it's like, don't just trust people on the internet, and don't just copy, like just do the math, figure out what works for you is the best answer. So I'm, doing that too with my payroll, but I'm take your time. There's no rush on this, Yeah, so I can see how it makes sense that you blend hourly with commission, because now your barbers have an incentive to not walk out empty-handed. Yeah, but it's hard, bro. It's hard. This is why I'm saying, like, don't just copy me. Like, you got to, because way harder. Like, does it make it easier to hire barbers if I can promise them you're never gonna make less than this much? Yes, for sure. But also, some other barbers are gonna be turned off by that because they're gonna want the flexibility to be able to like be in control of their own schedule and be able to make as much as they want, right? But the reality is, I think a lot of barbers were willing to give up making money for the sake of having control over their schedule, their time, their pricing, things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So just know that no matter what structure you pick, there's going to be a certain segment of barbers that are not going to be okay with it, right? There's some barbers that are out there that never want to do booth rent, ever. There's some that never want to do commission. They're just cool with just straight hourly, right? And if you don't think that's true, then just go look at any sport clips, any great clips, any hair cuttery. You know, each one of those companies has like 1,000 locations, supercuts, right? There's plenty of people out there that are willing to be on hourly, willing to be on commission, and willing to be on booth rent, right? So you just got to figure out what kind of business do you want, and then build your business around the barbers that you want, right? So in my case, I wanted barbers that were totally cool with being on hourly or commission, and I built my business around that. So we're never going to appeal to people that want to come and go as they please. They want to have control over their own schedule and control over their own pricing. Like, we're not the place for you if that's the case. There's plenty of booth rent shops around us. You can pick any one of them, right? Another thing I've noticed, I noticed this in like a Facebook that I'm a part of, but like a lot of barbers and hairstylists that are on booth rent want all the benefits of being self-employed, but without doing any of the work. And this is why I think a lot of them fail, because they blame the barbershop owner or the salon owner on not promoting for them. But the reality is, if you run a booth rent shop, you're not going to have much money left over to put into ads, right? Because you make the same every week, whether your barbers did one haircut or whether they did 50. So how are you going to have money to run ads? And even if you could, you're not going to make more as a result of it, because you make the same $200 a week or whatever. So also this is something I covered in that YouTube video I showed you guys earlier, but the business model that you choose is going to determine how many options you have to grow your barbershop. So I chose the hardest way, but it's also the most profitable way. So I can dump thousands and thousands of dollars of money into ads because I know that as long as the ads are converting, we're going to make our money back, right? Or that's a lot harder to do with booth rent. So there's no right or wrong way. It's just whichever path you choose, there's going to be different options. Does that make sense? But it does make it easier to hire barbers when I can say, yeah, for sure you're going to make guaranteed this much per month or per week. And if you have cancellations, no-shows, or a slow day, you're still getting paid, right? You can clean the shop, you can fold towels, whatever, right? There's pros and cons, right? There's not like one best way. That's just the way I chose, right? Can you share your performance structure bonus plan that you share with your barbers? So this is something that I cover in my barbershop owner community, Bill. I'm actually still, like I mentioned, I'm still kind of working on perfecting this. But basically right now, they get paid an hourly rate because they're employees. So they have to get paid an hourly rate, right? And then it's basically either hourly or commission. So this is a very common structure, right? And you'll see this a lot more in companies that are a little bit bigger, because it takes some math and some structure to figure out what makes sense. But basically, the barbers either get hourly or commission, whichever's higher, right? And the commission amount is like what we talked about earlier. Like, well, you got to do the math and figure out, how much profit do you want? What are you okay with that? The number at the bottom after you take out the barber's payroll. Okay, try that. I will say that if you're trying to figure out how much commission to pay your barbers, besides being a math problem, if you're not sure, it's always better to start lower, right? Because you can always raise it. Don't start too high, because I'll tell you what, in like 6 months, they're going to want more, right? And then another 6 months after you raise it, they're going to want more, right? At some point, there's going to become a limit where you can't pay them anymore, right? The only way you can maybe pay them more is if you raise the prices of the barbershop. That's the only way you can afford to pay your barbers more if you're on commission. And your profit percentage is going to stay the same, actually, but the dollar amount will increase. But if you think about it, like if you're paying your barbers 50% commission, which is a common number that gets thrown out there, if you raise your prices, you're still paying them 50%. Like your payroll cost doesn't change. You might make more dollars, but your payroll doesn't change, right? A lot of barbers think in terms of dollars. I think as barbershop owners, you need to think more in terms of percentages. Like what is your payroll cost? What is your percentage profit? These are the things that larger business owners eventually figure out. It took me a while to figure this out as well. It took me like 5-6 years, to be honest, to figure this shit out. Which is the whole point of my content, right? Is just to share the things that took me way too long to learn. And hopefully it helps some of you guys out there. And not all of you are going to be in a position to like join my barbershop owner mastermind. So that's why I do this content, because I get content out of it. You guys hopefully get something that you can use and it helps grow your barber business. And then when you're ready, you can always join my community. If you guys have no idea what I'm talking about either, this is my barbershop owner mastermind community. This is where these are all barbershop owners that are in here, most of them. And then I have a classroom here where we talk about some of this stuff, like how to price your haircuts, how to run ads, almost everything you need to run your barbershop. Now, I wouldn't quite put it up there yet, but this is definitely almost everything you need. I'm adding all my checklists for my barbershop, how to get clients from Google, how to hire barbers. One thing that I'm working on right now, the course that I'm building right now, is this one, the membership course. So I just finished the first module. So now I'm starting to work on the second module. And one thing I did different with this one is that anybody that joins my community right now gets access to this as well as every other course, because it's just right now we have it set up so you pay for the whole year instead of the month-to-month thing. I just want people that are serious. That's why I did that. So pay for the whole year. It's going to take you probably a year to get through all the content anyways. But this is available now. Even though I haven't finished it, you can actually kind of watch me build it, right? So there's 5 videos on how to set up a membership program for your barbershop already. But I'm going through the rest of these modules, and then eventually I'll release it to the whole group. But right now, if you're on the annual plan, you can access this right away. So that you can find a link to this in my bio wherever you're watching this, by the way. But if you're not ready for that, no problem, right? I got a free group. If you just want to network with other barbers and other barbershop owners, that's what the free group's for. The link to this is also in my bio. All right, so for like specific tactical, details like that, like how to set up your performance pay structure, how to pay your barbers, definitely better to join the barbershop owner mastermind for that kind of stuff. But not ready for that? Hey, I understand. That we got a free group too. So yeah. And then what do you recommend as far as opening up a shop but you don't have finances to start it? Like, do you get loans? Is there any other ways to get started? Well, okay. So you need money. I will say that's the short answer, okay? But because the thing that puts you out of business is like 6 months later, right? It doesn't cost much to get a barber shop started, right? Keeping it open is the hard part. So this is a mistake that I think a lot of just business owners in general make, not just barbers, but business owners, right? Like, so 80% of businesses fail. 80% of all businesses, not just barbershops, but 80% of all businesses fail. And the reason why in a lot of cases is that they ran out of money, right? So you want to have enough money to get started, like get the doors open, but then you want to have some money in the bank because you might not be profitable on day one. I mean, I hope you are, but the reality is you don't want to bank on that, right? You want to have some money in the bank to kind of absorb those losses, because there may be losses, right? And so it wouldn't go crazy. So it doesn't actually take a lot to get a barbershop started, right? So all you need is a few chairs, a few mirrors, some paint, some lights, some surge protectors, maybe a computer, but that's it. And then you can always build as you go, Right? A lot of people design these like beautiful barber shops. Everything's like immaculate, right? But then their bank account is zero. So then 3 months later, it's they're putting it up for sale, or there's a sign on the door saying for lease, right? Because they went out of business because they blew all their money on making this barbershop look beautiful, but they didn't have any money to like keep it open. So don't make that mistake. So what I did was I got really lucky. So my first location, I was working at a barber shop nearby, and my wife sent me a link to a barbershop for sale on Craigslist. And this barbershop was basically brand new. It was move-in ready. They didn't want anything to do with it anymore. So they wanted 5 grand for it. So I was like, okay, I got a loan for 10 grand from the bank because that's the most they would give me. And I bought it for 5, and then I had 5 in the bank to get started. And then luckily, a lot of my clients followed me in the beginning, and that was enough for me to just get started, right? But I would not recommend that. Knowing what I know now, I would probably want to have like 50 grand in the bank, because you also have to think about like how are you going to let people know, how you're going to get the word out, and then how are you going to absorb those losses if you're not profitable from day one. So I think the first step is build up a ton of clientele, right? Because you got to also keep in mind that you're not going to be able to keep everybody. That I'm just telling you that right now. If you're lucky, maybe like 60-70% of your clients follow you, but in reality, probably going to be closer to 50. All right, and then start saving money now. As if you don't have good credit, fix that first, because you're going to need more money later. Even if you have enough money to get started, you're going to need more later. And yeah, that's really all you can do. You can sell. You can try to pull cash up front, like from the future, so you can sell gift cards. This is like crowdfunding, essentially. Try to sell some gift cards. Maybe pick up a second job, but like you gotta have money in the bank, right? Not just enough money to get started, but enough money for like, okay, I can go 3 months maybe without making money. And this goes for your personal life too. So I don't know if that's helpful for you. Probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but you need money, right? You can get a loan. Nothing wrong with that. That's what I did. But I wouldn't, you also got to make sure one thing I've learned is when it comes to managing business finances is that the way you manage your personal finances absolutely reflects on the business. So this is a hard lesson that I learned, right? But if you can't manage your personal finances, you're going to have a hard time managing the business finances. So start practicing that skill now of like saving money. Like it sounds like crazy, but like it doesn't actually get easier to manage money when you start making more. It actually gets a lot harder. So one of the sayings that I've kind of told myself and told some other people is like, if you can't manage $1,000, you can't manage 10,000. And if you can't manage 10,000, you definitely can't manage 100,000. Our business does over $1 million now. So, you have more options now. You can actually, I think, go out of business quicker the bigger your business gets, right? Because the expenses go higher, so the mistakes become more expensive. So you're going to start practicing and flexing that muscle now of like financial discipline. Put money in the bank and keep it there, right? There's a great book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. It's a really short one, really simple stuff, but it basically can teach you how to save money automatically, right? These are the skills you're going to need too as a business owner. It's not like this is something that you don't need as a business owner as well. Like you absolutely have to be good at managing finances as a business owner. So you might as well start practicing before you're a business owner, before it's too late, right? And then when you go to open your shop, you're just going to be in a better position, right? Okay, let's see here. How do you perform with a barber? How do you deal with a barber that isn't performing well, but your retention, hard worker, but retention is low, 51%? Do you offer training, reduced hours, or move them out? So 51%. So I would agree that that's low, but is that all clients? Is it new? Is it repeat? Because we actually look at retention in three different ways. We look at new clients, we look at repeat clients, and then we look at total, which is a kind of a blend of both. We made the mistake of like kind of exclusively focusing on repeat clients and kind of forgetting about new clients, right? So now we look at total. So we look at total client retention. So how many new clients did you see? How many repeat clients did you see? And then what was basically the average of those, right? And so we look at total client, everything that we do now. Like we even do retention bonuses for the barbers, but the retention bonus is based on total client retention, right? Not new, not repeat, total. So existing 51%, new 17. Yeah, that's pretty low, man. So I would figure out what is going on here with new, especially with new clients, because if you're spending money on marketing, having that low retention is definitely costing you a lot of money, right? And so you want to figure out like what's happening in the chair, what's not happening. Typically, it's a combination of the barber has a just shitty customer service. They're not very skilled, or they're not rebooking people. You know, so what do you think? I'm sure you have some ideas. What do you think it is? Why do you think their retention is so low with that particular barber? The ultimate answer though is to absolutely to try to coach them, right? Like, yeah, for sure. You either coach them up or coach them out. I don't really see the point of like reducing their hours or moving them, like firing them. I would say either get them better or get them out, right? Because either way, something's got to change because they're gonna take so much longer to build with having that low retention, right? Like way long. Because if you think about it, they're losing half their clients, half every single month. So I don't know what the average between like 17 and 51% is, but I would also ask like what is the retention period that you're looking at? Because we look at a 90-day period. When we first started tracking retention, I was looking actually too soon. Right, so I would look at like this month, which is there's not enough time. Like so we do our retention window over 90 days. So we're in July now, and I was just looking at it this morning. So we just figured out what our March retention was. Like so from 3 months ago. So we wait 3 months before we consider that accurate. And it actually usually goes up over time, but not by much. So that's like the short. I've tried going shorter. I've tried doing like 60 days, even 30. Because you would think with guys, like, yeah, you can maybe do a shorter than 90 days. But in my experience, like 90 days is like the shortest window before you can consider those numbers accurate. So you just want to look back basically 4 months. So I would I haven't given an answer yet, but like what is the question what is the retention window that you're looking at? Because if you're looking too soon, it might be why that's so low, right? Because I could look at our retention right now from last month, from June, but it's going to be like horrific, right? Because there hasn't been enough time for these guys to come back. So that's another kind of lesson I learned. I was like freaking out when I first started tracking retention because I didn't understand that you have to leave time you have to have time go past so that there's enough months that go by to where like, okay, now we're pretty confident in these numbers. We're pretty confident that this number is accurate. That makes sense? Retention is 100% important. Is probably retention and profitability, probably the two most important numbers in our business, in our barber business. Retention and profit. Because if you are retaining clients but you're unprofitable, you're going to go out of business. If you have profit but you're not retaining clients, then you're going to have to spend a shit ton of money in marketing to replace those clients you're losing, and that's going to put you back to not having as much profit, right? It's going to feel like you're running on a treadmill if you have really low retention because you're not going anywhere. Like you're cutting hair all day as a barber, but you're not actually growing. You're not making more. Like every week, every month, every year is the same because you're not keeping the clients that you're seeing. You're just kind of
you lose this client, a new client replaces them, and then the cycle just repeats until eventually they get burned out or they get mad at the barbershop owner, like the barbershop owner is doing something wrong, where it's like the reality is, at least in our shop, all of our barbers are seeing about the same amount of clients every single month. And the reason why some barbers make more than others, it simply comes down to retention. This barber stays fully booked all day, every day, because they're retaining their clients. This barber is still dependent on walk-ins and new clients because they're not retaining their clients. And the difference is clear. It's even more clear when you have a barber that starts way later than the other barbers and they build up faster. Have you guys ever seen that happen in your barbershop? Where you have a barber that starts brand new and they end up building a clientele faster than the person that's been there for a year, 2 years. The only difference is that one was better at retention than the other. That's it. There's not a lot of tactics, honestly, that you can do. I mean, there's some that'll help, but ultimately, it is, as far as improving retention, like I could say things like, okay, focus on rebooking, focus, maybe create a membership program for your shop. That's been helpful to boost our retention. Ultimately, it's about having the right barber, and it's like 90%, I think, what happens in the chair. So customer service, reliable, quality of the haircut, like all these things influence whether people decide to come back or not. Like having a membership program is not going to be a replacement for figuring out why aren't your barbers replacing clients. It may help, but ultimately the barbers are the ones that have the most amount of control or influence on whether these clients come back or not. Me as a barbershop owner, there's not actually that much I can do to convince a client to come back that doesn't want to come back, right? So yeah, and to be honest, that's why I got so good at marketing, right? Because our retention wasn't that great a couple of years ago. So I'm like, oh shit, I got to figure this out, So I got really good at or decent at marketing until we can figure out like why aren't we keeping these clients? Does that make sense? Like, so I think I got really decent at marketing because we weren't that great at retention. And now we're great at retention. We're pretty good. So I'm not going to be nearly as dependent on marketing going forward. I can't wait for the day where I can turn the budget down on our ads to just the bare minimum, right? Because that money that I was spending on ads can turn into pure profit for the business, right? Instead of giving it to Mark Zuckerberg or Google, we can just keep it, and better yet, give it to the barbers, since they're the ones that are helping to build the business, So definitely retention is the most important thing. If you aren't retaining clients, then you need to be better at marketing until you can figure out why you're not retaining clients. Hopefully that makes sense. It's like pouring water into a bucket, and this bucket has holes, right? Every bucket has holes. You lose clients no matter what you do in the barbershop. It's just how many clients you lose is what we're trying to influence here. The better you are at retention, the less holes in your bucket. But if your bucket has a ton of holes, and these holes are giant, right, that means you got to be really good at marketing, which is pouring water in, bringing new clients in, until you can figure out how do we plug these leaks, right? And sometimes it's as simple as getting rid of the barbers, but I don't personally like to just get rid of barbers without first coaching them first to figure out like what's going on here, right? Because when you train another barber, you actually get better too, right? So instead of just like firing somebody because they're not that great, like let's try to figure out how can we make them better? Because even if that person doesn't work out, like you're going to have somebody else in the future that has low retention or that struggles with haircut times or haircut quality or customer service, right? So might as well take this opportunity to practice on coaching this person. So even if this person doesn't work out, you tried, right? And you also sleep a lot better at night. Like at least me personally, as a barbershop owner, I sleep a lot better at night knowing we tried everything we could. Like we didn't just give up on this person, Like we had multiple conversations about this. We gave them opportunities to improve. So I hate when we go to let somebody go at our barbershop and they're surprised. Like nothing bothers me more, right? I hate firing people, but I will fire people. But they're gonna see it coming, right? Hopefully they're not gonna like if we did our job right as managers, they should see it coming, right? And they're either gonna get with the program, or in a lot of cases they're gonna end up leaving on their own because they're starting to realize like maybe I'm not the right fit. But I don't think you should just hit somebody out of nowhere with like, sorry, we gotta let you go, unless it's something that like really bad, like they're stealing money or something, you know. But I think you should give them every opportunity to improve, and this is why we do one-on-ones, by the way, one-on-ones and performance reviews. And I meet with every new barber we hire weekly now, which has been really effective. So if you're not doing that, I would consider doing that, right? And they're gonna think they're in trouble the first few times you do this, but the reality is, once they started getting used to it, I've gotten nothing but positive feedback on this, because they just know like this is a recurring meeting. So they meet with their manager every week or every month for 30 minutes. They talk about whatever, you know, that's just what we call a one-on-one. It's not like we're not talking really about numbers. It's just like, how are you doing? How can we help? The performance reviews, which we're about to do now since we're in a new quarter, that's when we're sitting down and we're talking about this is how the last quarter went. You know, this is where we see areas of improvement. It's also a way for them to give us feedback too. And if you're not doing those things, you're not doing monthly one-on-ones, you're not doing quarterly performance reviews, I would consider starting that. Right? Yes, it takes some time. You got to block out their schedule. They could be doing a haircut during that time, but I think it's 100% worth it. Right? Definitely worth it, because the outcome of that is they either get better and they stick around longer as barbers, or they leave and they make room for somebody who's better, right? So you also have to think about employee retention. Employee retention is very highly correlated, I think, with client retention. So once you get a good barber in there, you gotta do what you can to keep them for as long as possible. Like just with clients, these barbers are not gonna stay forever, right? That was a hard lesson that I had to realize. I know that everybody that's on my team right now, eventually they're gonna leave. And it might be tomorrow, it might be next year, it might be 20 years from now, but eventually they're gonna leave, right? So all I try to do is keep them as long as possible, right? Make sure they're happy, make sure they're making good money, but still having a standard, right? We gotta meet this standard, you know? So what's the best, most cost-effective way of starting a barbershop to promote and get walk-ins? Okay, so Facebook ads are not the most cost-effective way. It is my favorite way, but you have to think about this. So a few questions ago, you just asked me about where do we get money to open a barbershop? So I'm gonna assume, I could be wrong here, and I don't mean to like offend you, but I'm assuming that money might be an issue. So what we want to do is first of all, there is no best way to market. They all work, right? So it's just a question of resources and time. Well, time is a resource. It's a question of resources and return on investment. Okay, so Facebook ads are great because they're fast and they're pretty much like unlimited in terms of scalability. Like I can go on right now into my Facebook account and dial the bond budget up from $200 a day to $2,000 a day. I just did that last week, right? I do that, sometimes on slow days to just boost our slow days, right? I'll just go in there. Okay, instead of spending $200 a day, I'm gonna add another zero and make it 2,000. Hard to do that with other means, right? It's hard. I can't think of another way where you can instantly reach, everybody in your city for just a couple clicks of the mouse, like 2 minutes of work, But it's not the way that I recommend for everybody because it takes money, right? And it's a skill that you have to learn. So it's not something that everybody should just dive into, because initially, like, your ads are going to suck, right? And they're not going to convert well, and you're going to think this is a waste of money. This is exactly why I have a Meta ads course in my community. So if you guys look here, if you guys want to learn how to run Meta ads without wasting a ton of money, that's what I built this course for you guys for. But again, like, this is if you have money, right? If you don't have money, then you got to spend time. So what you could do is you could just go on Instagram and just DM everybody in your area. One of the fastest, easiest ways to find clients in your area to DM is just to find a local account that has a ton of followers and then just DM everybody that has interacted with their most recent posts, right? So I like to do that because you know that they're active, right? They just like this post from yesterday. That means they were just on Instagram yesterday, right? So because if you just go through their followers, some of these might be fake accounts, or maybe they haven't been on Instagram for like a year, right? So I would start with DMing people that are like liking, commenting on some of the most recent posts from these large accounts in your area. And I think you can send up to 50 DMs a day. You can expect maybe 10 people will respond, and maybe like 5 will actually come in and give you a try, right? So that's like a, 1% conversion rate. But if you did that every single day, that's like potentially like 5 new clients per day. And if you get better at it and you get, work on your sales skills and your conversation skills, you might be able to increase that to like, okay, out of every 50 DMs I send, maybe 10 people are coming in now. And then you just keep doing that consistently until you don't have time to do that anymore. But if you don't have time, then you should have money. And if you have money, then now you can start to shift the strategy towards maybe Facebook ads or Google ads, right? And then now your money's working for you. Instead of you working for money, now your money's working for you. You don't have time, you're too busy cutting hair, but advertising, you realize advertising is still important. You don't want to just stop. So you don't have time now to do Instagram DMs, but you can just start running Facebook ads or start running Google ads, whatever you want. I like Meta more. I've been trying to make Google work. I gave up on it. I still have like a small budget, like $10 a day on Google, but Meta's where it's at right now. And I'm probably going to start testing TikTok ads in the next few months, but right now nothing works better for us than Meta. So that's kind of the answer to your question, Ramon, is that's the most cost-effective way. Well, there's not one way, right? It's what do you have more of? Do you have more time or money? Okay, spend that. So if you have more time, you got to spend time trying to get new clients. If you have more money, spend some money, right? And just realize that it's going to take a little bit to see the return on that too. Either way you go, right? We go with Facebook ads, your first like couple months is just going to be like learning how to do it, right? Even if you go through my whole course, you're still probably not going to see results right away. It's going to take like 6 months maybe, but you will get it. You will figure it out, because you know how I know that? Because I figured it out. And I'm not that smart. So I figured it out, so you can too. But I didn't have me helping me too. So it shouldn't take you as long as it took me, right? And if that's not an option for right now, like running paid ads, then I would just go Instagram. Like there's nothing, I'm not the type of person that goes out and hands out business cards like that. Like I'll just rather sit on my couch, and DM a bunch of people, and then I'm done for the day, right? And it's more effective too. Like how long would you have to be walking down the street to hand out 50 business cards? Probably would be a lot faster to just DM 50 people, right? You just find whatever works, what works best for you. Yeah. And also, I don't know if this is part of your question, but what's the most cost-effective way of starting a barbershop? The best way is find a place that used to be a barbershop. And there's plenty of them, right? Because it's move-in ready. So I've made this mistake twice because I have 2 barbershops. And when I found that space, they were an empty shell. Like nothing was in there. It was just concrete and drywall. So, by the way, this is the most expensive way to start a barbershop. The way I did it. Twice. So, hopefully, going forward, we will be able to find like second generation spaces that are like, this used to be a salon, this used to be a barbershop. That's best case scenario because the electricity is already there, the plumbing's already there. Shit, it might even be move-in ready, right? If it was a barbershop that went out of business, I've seen like barbershops that were literally had all the chairs, all the stations, all the lighting was already there, right? And the landlord just wanted somebody. They kicked the old barbershop owner out because they couldn't afford the rent. So the landlord's like, we need a barbershop owner. It's a move-in ready space. So there's opportunities like that happening all the time. You can go on, it's called LoopNet. LoopNet, LoopNet. And that shows you all the commercial spaces available for rent near you. Right? Some of them might be available right now that used to be a barbershop. That's best case scenario to get started. It's still going to be expensive, right? You still should have money in the bank after you start. But if you're looking to just build a barbershop for the lowest possible cost, I don't know of a better way than to get a space that used to be a barbershop. Ideally, if everything's there, but that's really rare. But it used to be like all the construction was done already. It's just you're just moving in, right, and connecting your stuff. All right, you got it, guys. Yeah, thanks, man. Any other questions? This went a little longer today. Normally, we try to keep these calls to like 30 minutes or so, but you guys had some good questions today. If you guys want to join my free community, just DM me the word guide. One second. Just DM me the word guide on Instagram or comment the word guide on any one of my posts, and I'll send you a free invite to my free community. And if you are a barbershop owner that needs help growing your barbershop, then I have a paid community as well. But that one's just for barbershop owners and just for people that are serious. Like, if you're not fully committed, then just join the free group. No worries, right? I don't do this for money, but I just want to make sure the people in the group are serious. So that's why I charge for it. All right, guys. I'll let you go. I'll see you next week. Have a good one.